here's the story from the Daily Mail. I hope you're in for a laugh riot. Serious national security threat is, quote, Russia wanting to put a nuclear weapon in space. Biden urged to declassify all materials after ominous warning from top Republican Mike Turner. Okay, here it is. U.S. House Intelligence Committee. Today, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence has made available to all members of Congress information concerning a serious national security threat. Quote, I am requesting that President Biden declassify all information relating to this threat so that Congress, the administration, and our allies can openly discuss the actions necessary to respond to this threat. Of course, Russian space nukes. And, I got to be honest. Mike Cernovich summed it up better than anyone else could. Imagine believing this. Okay. So you're telling me that a day after the Senate passes $60 billion in funding for Ukraine, 14.7 or 15, whatever, for Israel, plus funding for Taiwan, and the House says no, you get this report that, well, actually, Russia's going to put a nuclear weapon in outer space. So, yeah, we get it. They're trying to create fear, panic, and pressure so that they can force the House to vote so that your money goes to war.
This is like Saddam Hussein with his chemical weapons in Iraq. I remember that very well. He's got chemical weapons and then weapons of mass destruction, weapons of mass destruction. And then they went in. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
There were no nuclear
weapons. They were like...
They might have got rid of them. They might have rushed them out the door before the inspectors got there.
There was the weapons that we gave them.
But there is an argument about what does it mean to have a weapon of mass destruction? Because some people have talked about chemical weapons or biological weapons. Yeah. But the fear was that they'd have nuclear weapons or something.
Yeah.
Look, my friends in the deep state, it's not the Cold War anymore. I was born at the end of the Cold War, and I was but a wee child when the Cold War ended. How old were you? You're like what, like 10 years older than me, Phil?
Yep.
So you were like, so how old were you when the wall came down and the Soviet Union collapsed?
89, 14.
Yeah. So like you actually like that happened, and for me, I was like, nah. I had no idea what was going on. I think I was playing with Dupelos or something.
I remember it. It was crazy to think because and the funny thing is I was familiar with it. I feel like I was familiar with it because I was a big fan of that movie Gotcha, where they were in East and West Berlin and playing paintball. That was like my first introduction to East Germany, West Germany. But I remember it coming down and it was a big deal. And I still feel like people have forgotten how big of a deal it was.
Yeah, it felt like war was over finally.
There was a lot of that, and that you felt that way in the rest of the country too. Like the military kind of changed the direction that they were going, and that's one of the things that I heard. I think it was Ben Shapiro talking about how in the 90s, after the Soviet Union fell and after the fall of the Berlin Wall and stuff, and kind of communism, people kind of were like, oh, communism is actually falling apart globally, and it's going to be a new age of the United States is the only superpower, and it's going to be a new world of liberalism and stuff.
But when you guys were kids, was there a fear of a nuclear bomb dropping on your city?
Not
for me, yeah.
Oh, there was.
Because I lived right down the street from an Air Force base that had Westover Air Force Base in Chicopee, Massachusetts, has the longest runway in the Northeast. Wow. It's one of the alternate locations to land the space shuttle, and because of the length of the runway, B-52 bombers can land and take off and stuff from there. So that's a nuclear target. Like they're gonna, if during the Cold War, it's like we're gonna shoot that because they got to get rid of the.
So I hear these stories from people older than me about the drills, duck and cover, yep. Soviet nuclear bomb, nuclear war. But I grew up I'm a small child when the Soviet Union collapses and the wall comes down and all that, and it was like. I vaguely remember like sitting in my basement maybe or something.
I never did duck and cover.
Me neither.
No, but I mean like there was a fear of war.
Yeah.
And there was active proxy war going on. But I'm saying like for my life, there was no fear of nuclear bombs dropping on anybody.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So I don't I'm going to be 38 in like 3 weeks. This idea of nuclear bombs in the sky does not resonate with me in any way. When I was reading about the space race, because someone like Alex Stein here says the moon landing didn't happen, and then I'm going to read about the history of what's going on and why the U.S. wanted to compete, and there was a fear that with the launch of Sputnik, Russia would put weapons in outer space, and so I look at this and I'm like, it's been 60 years, dude. You are not. I am not fazed by this idea because I already assume they have them in outer space. It's just not.
Well, they have, I mean, intercontinental ballistic missiles go into outer space to be able to get around the world. Like that was the reason for the space race. The military reason for the space race was to be able to put rockets into orbit and get them to come down where you want them to, so you can put a missile into orbit and get the warhead to come down where you wanted it to. So it was a dual purpose. It was for space exploration and et cetera, but also it was for learning how to use intercontinental ballistic missiles, because that's all rockets are.
I was just thinking one of the reasons why I was never afraid in the 80s of nuclear war is because of Reagan. Like, and I didn't know much about politics. I was like 7 or 8, but he was so friendly. He seemed on TV so nice, and he would joke, and he seemed confident, and like it's just I felt safe because the president was cool.
Yeah.
And
Under Biden, you have to be scared. Like he's a puppet.
that's what it feels like.
I suppose it's a fair point. I'm not scared of Russia. I'm scared of ineptitude from Joe Biden.
I know. Even in Spain, we laugh at him. Like you look at the U.S. and it's a joke right now. So
How long have you been in the U.S.?
For 1 year.
1 year. So
Yeah,
what's it
exactly.
like in Spain? What's the perception of the Biden administration and the United States?
Even my grandma laughs at him. And she has no idea about politics. Like you look at the U.S., what's supposed to be like the strongest and most amazing country on earth, and you have a guy that cannot even speak English. I speak better English than Joe Biden, and I just have been here for
That's
1
true.
year. So people laugh at the U.S.
What about Trump though?
They respect him. They can think he's an asshole because of the media, but they respect him. It's like, okay, it's a strong country under Trump.
I feel like we're living under a cult, right? I mean, I call the left a cult a lot. But this narrative that they constantly put out, it's like, it's a parallel reality. You know, it was Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert were talking about it, that they were overseas in the first Trump election in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were like, oh, there's no way Trump's going to win. Everything we've seen in the media says he's going to lose. And then when they came back to the U.S. and saw the signs everywhere, they were like, Trump's going to win. Like the reality on the ground with people is so dramatically different from what the media has been showing everybody.
That's
So
the problem.
in the U.S., they say Trump has made us a laughingstock around the world. I've not really experienced that. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying in my experience, having traveled quite a bit during this time, I didn't experience this laughingstock. I would say that I experienced one of two things: laughter. Well, laughter in two forms: either at the expense of Trump a little bit, but not in this idea that everyone was laughing. I would say it was actually a lot of it was unease and concern of like what's going on, what's happening to the United States.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of people that I had met, and this one's extremely obvious. The other experience I had, especially all over Europe, is we love Trump. We need Trump here.
So many people, the ones that do a little bit more of research rather than just looking at watching on TV, they love Trump and they are jealous of the US of when they had Trump, and hopefully they will have Trump again. But most of the people that only watch the news on TV, they think that he's a bad person, that he does all these rude jokes. But they respect him though because he looks strong.
Well, yeah, he looks crazy. That's Trump's. Those are Trump's words when he said that Putin and Xi were scared that he would nuke them, and he was like, I love that you've heard that voicemail where he's like, I told them that if I told Putin that if he invaded Ukraine I would nuke Moscow, and if Xi invaded Taiwan I would nuke Beijing, and he's like, I don't know if they believed me, maybe 5%, but it was enough, and it's like. Yikes, man! But it's true.
I was asked. I debated Destiny last weekend, and during the debate, near the end of the debate, the moderator Wick asked me. I think it was Wick asked me, "What's the most because I claimed that we're in a fascism system right now. We have a system of and it's not all fascism or none. It's like a gradient scale, 1 to 100, and we're somewhere on that scale that's more than I'm comfortable with." He was like, "What's the most fascist institution in the U.S.?" I said social media, but now after I thought about it, I think it's like this corporate media, this mainstream thing.
Yeah.
Because the images they put out are like blatantly misaligned with reality in so many ways.
I would love to. I think I will qualify the following statement with: I would love to get a World War II historian on the Culture War show to discuss all of this, accepting that what I'm about to say is lacking. I read I think 2.5 academic papers on what Nazism was, what fascism was, and so. Typically, when people refer to fascism, they're saying authoritarian. But fascism actually had specific tenets, and it was this like traditionalist, collectivist, authoritarian. I would say that the economy we have right now under woke like I would say woke and Nazism are the same economic system, not ideological necessarily, but similar. And that is because when, this was a few years ago, I started reading academic papers on this stuff because, like I said, 2.5, not very extensive. I was reading it because I kept hearing people say, like, the Nazis were socialists. They were socialists. And then the socialists would be like, they were not socialists. They were far right. And I'm like, okay, well, typically far right economics refers to like laissez-faire capitalism. You can do what you want with limited regulation. And I don't think, or none. And I certainly don't think the Nazis were of no regulation. And so I actually started reading about the economic standards, and they had what's called a mixed economy, which is a portion of it is state controlled and a portion of it is private controlled. But the system, the economic Nazi system, was basically predicated upon social pressure and fear of extreme detriment should you defy social order.
And everything was for the state too. Like as much as they understood or they believed that it was better to have specialization in the economy, so they let private industry exist. But you had to line up with what the state wanted. If you look at the economic system in Nazi Germany and the economic system in China right now, they're actually similar because China has people in the office of like, Huawei or whatever. There's like a CCP office there or like a desk there and the same kind of thing. That's part of the reason why we had such a massive problem with the FBI guy being the head lawyer at Twitter before, because it was like FBI had a desk at Twitter.
And this is the really interesting thing, the difference between the communists and the Nazis. The communists are like centralized command economy. Our guy will go in and tell you what to do. And what happens then is you have an ineffective, slow-moving system which is struggling to produce. The Nazis were like, yeah, do your thing. But if we find out you're not doing things that support us, you will regret it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's basically like cancel culture. And this is that's why when you said we're in a fascist system, I'm like, that was like Italy's system, and there's an overlap for sure. But I think the woke and how they run economics is very much like the Nazis in that if you have a company and you do not support the DEI stuff, they will pull loans from you. Your ESG score goes down, and now all of a sudden you're not getting financing. It's a free market. You can do whatever you want. But if you defy us, very similar to what the Nazis were doing.
One of these things about the Nazi economy I was just learning a month ago, was that they were taking out, I think it was loans. They were getting huge amounts of money in, and they would be like, we're building cars for our people, but they were building tanks. They were lying. They were obfuscating this military buildup for like 5 years or something. And they were saying, we're revitalizing it. And they were revitalizing their economy. I put that in quotes because people had jobs. People didn't even know what they were building. They would just go in, they'd build tubes. They didn't know they were building tank parts. And the Nazis had no way to pay any of this money back. They were not prepared to. They were prepared to conquer their neighbors and then extract their wealth.
There's arguments that say that if the Treaty of Versailles wasn't so harsh on Germany and so punitive on Germany, that you wouldn't have ended up with World War II. That's part of the reason why people say that's one of the things that people attribute a terrible thing to Wilson. I think it's probably not really Wilson's fault. He was supportive, but he wasn't like instrumental. And I think people are just like, one more reason to hate Wilson, why not? But the treaty was rough on Germany.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.